happening? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition. We're going to go back and take a look at the split divisions of this year's Rebel Stakes down at Oaklawn Park. We'll also come back with some quick hits, a little bit of a stakes montage. It's a pretty brief one this week. Normally I try to keep to the graded stakes races, but if that was the case, it'd only be 2 more races. Threw in a couple of those listed stakes that were a little bit intriguing, but we will dive into the Azeri, the inside information. Also get you the weekend's best as far as buyer speed figure performances are concerned. Wrap things up with the DRFTV schedule of events for this upcoming week, and we'll get you out of here in good order. You listen to this thing, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, Spotify, number of different spots for you to find it. However you take it in, please subscribe, rate, and review. It's always greatly appreciated. Over on YouTube, make sure that bell icon is lit up so you get everything that DRFTV has to offer. And again, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however it is, just make sure that you subscribe, write reviews, and give us a rating one way or the other. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Let's get right into it. The first division of this year's Rebel down at Oaklawn, a mile and a 16th. 7 3-year-olds lined up. Heavy favorite in here. Improbable, down to odds of 2 to 5. Haven't seen him since the beginning of December when he won the Los Alamitos Futurity. Been some little hiccups here and there as far as the things out at Santa Anita are concerned. He was supposed to run the weekend prior. Obviously, that race was canceled, so a little bit of a change of plan. But really, when you look at it, you're expecting a horse from Bob Baffert at Oaklawn ready to fire. Outside of him, some interesting alternatives included another Southern California import in Galilean. He had Extra Hope, who looked nice in his most recent run. Long Range Toddy, a little bit of a troubled trip in his most recent start. Perhaps he could move forward. Ultimately, that's exactly what he did. Here's the stretch run of the first division of the Rebel.
Galilean nearest the rail. Improbable in the center. Extra Hope is between horses, and Improbable slingshots to the front. Improbable now a length and a half in front. Long Range Toddy is running a very big one in the center of the track. Improbable, Long Range Toddy trying to gun him down. Improbable, here's Long Range Toddy.
Long Range Toddy gets the job done at odds of 8 to 1 over your 2 to 5 favorite Improbable, who was wide throughout. We'll go into that trip a little bit more momentarily. Galilean rounds out your trifecta as the second choice at odds of 7 to 2. Let's take a look at Long Range Toddy. He's 4 of 7 lifetime, 2 other times in the money, over $850,000 in career earnings, owned and bred by Willis Horton Racing LLC in Kentucky, trained by Steve Asmussen. Ridden to victory by John Court, and you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He's by Take Charge Indy, out of an unbridled song mare named Pleasant Song. 95 buyer and 117 pace adjusted time form US rating for Long Range Toddy. The exact same numbers earned by Improbable, who was defeated by a neck in here. It looks like there's a real chance that both of these horses meet again in the $1 million Arkansas Derby coming up in about 4 weeks. It'll be interesting to see moving forward. You know, coming into this spot, I looked at it and said, Long Range Toddy, I think he's an okay horse. If you wanted anyone coming out of that most recent prep, I believe it was the Southwest, I thought it was him because he didn't have a very good trip that day in behind horses. Got to run too late. I still didn't think he was quite this good. Now, maybe I haven't given him enough credit all along, but this was a really nice effort, especially when you consider the way that he ran throughout. Where John Court breaks, he breaks very alertly and actually leads the field going into the first turn, but he comes to hand, he sits, relaxes, lets other horses go in behind them, and a very patient ride from Court. Waits, finds that seam, and goes on with it. This was an impressive effort from Long Range Toddy. He finished in 30-21. Compare that to Improbable, who came home in 30-51. So about a good length and a half faster. I mean, I thought this was all-around an impressive effort from Long Range Toddy. And he took that step forward from a number standpoint that I think he would need to in order to be considered a horse that maybe you want to be looking at as far as Kentucky Derby contenders are concerned. A good effort, and certainly something that, at least to me anyway, puts him in that sort of, in that tier of horses that you can look at and say, you know what, you've run fast enough, you've beaten good competition, and you continue to improve. You're going the right direction. You're trending upward. Long Range Toddy, I'm not going to argue with anyone that sits here and says this is the kind of horse that you want going forward. He proved me wrong, and we'll find out if he continues to prove me wrong going forward. But I at least now, I'm more of a believer now. I think he's a nice little horse. As far as Improbable is concerned, I know there are a number of people that were disappointed in this effort. I thought he was going to win. I picked him. I just thought, simply put, he was the best horse in the race. Thought he was the most talented 2-year-old male that ran last year, regardless of what his stablemate game winner accomplished en route to his championship honors. He was wide throughout, and really, if you do look at ground loss, it's kind of hard to argue that the ground loss alone, if you reverse the trips, Improbable, just strictly from a amount of distance covered, Improbable ran a better race from that standpoint. And if you reverse the sort of distances traveled, Improbable wins by probably open lengths. When I say open lengths, two, length and a half, 2 lengths, something along those lines. But I can also understand some folks that look at it and say, you know what, this was just a little bit of he should have done more. He was in the clear, which, yeah, sure, you got a bit of a wide trip, but if you think you're on the best horse, I think that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not going to blame Drayden Van Dyke for this trip whatsoever. For me, more so, though, you watch him coming down the lane, and he's just got his head cocked a little bit, and it seemed like he did sort of ease up a little bit once he hit the front. And I think this is just a horse that is a little bit on the inexperienced side, a little bit on the immature side, and perhaps he's still going to need a little bit more seasoning. Maybe he'll need an equipment change. Who knows? It's too early to tell, but I think that's the bigger piece, is that it is too early to make a definitive call and say, well, just because he didn't win this race, he's no good. Like, that seems a little bit aggressive, doesn't it? And I love all these people that say, you've never seen a horse that you really like and have more conviction with certain things. Look, you look at these races however you want. If you want to be the person that falls in love and says, can't lose, I am with him no matter what, that's fine. It's happened to me before. I've been in that boat. But really, when you do look at it just at the bare bones sort of handicapping structure, that's a bad move to make. I'm going to look at this and say, you know what? Not a great effort from Improbable. Wasn't bad. But this is something that he can certainly move forward from, and I think his next time out, he's going to be the horse to beat. If they both end up in the Arkansas Derby, I think Improbable is going to be a more likely winner than Long Range Toddy. That doesn't mean that I think Long Range Toddy's not good and hasn't done better and hasn't continued to improve, but I think Improbable is going to be that much better next time out. Now, again, from a mental standpoint, maybe he does need to tighten it up a little bit, but I'm not going to sit here and say that because he lost this race at 2-5 by a neck when he carried a hell of a lot more ground than the winner did, that he's just some bum and he was overrated all along. That to me seems a little bit silly. I think he's going to take that step forward here next time out. The other thing to keep in mind about Improbable and Game Winner, and I'll bring it up again when we talk about that second division, both of these horses were scheduled to run a different day, a week ago. And it may not seem like it's a big deal, but so often these horses are ready to go and peak at this specific time. And all of a sudden, when there's a hiccup and you need to take a little bit of an alternate route, it doesn't 100% mean that they're going to falter, but it's just an added sort of variable that you usually, especially trainers and connections, this has been the goal all along, and now we have to shift our attention over here. And sometimes that can end up costing a horse. Perhaps that had a little bit of an effect on each of these horses, as well as they both ran. Perhaps that was something that you want to factor in going forward. I think they both ran quite well. Galilean, didn't think he ran poorly. This was his sort of acid test. To me, he ran well enough where there's no reason to believe that, look, if you want to take another shot with him on one of these sort of Derby prep races, I wouldn't argue with the connections. Maybe it's back in Southern California. Maybe it's back here for the Arkansas Derby. He would need to take another step forward in order to really be what I would consider a serious threat. But again, it's not out of the realm of possibility at this stage in the game. Extra Hope, I'm starting to wonder a little bit. Maybe this is pushing it for him. I like him. I think he's a very talented 3-year-old. I do wonder, though, if this is maybe the water is a little bit too deep for him at this point. Maybe he's the kind of horse that maybe you take one more shot, but maybe he would be, I don't want to say best suited, but perhaps it would be in his best interest with a little bit of a sort of turn back or a configuration change where maybe you get to the Pate Mile. It's a one-turn mile. You know the mile is right in his wheelhouse. Looks like Richard Mandel is going to have another horse from the big race. We'll get to that in the second division. And like I said, I think Extra Hope's a nice horse. Maybe this is a little bit too much for him at this point in his career. As far as the top two are concerned, I think they both deserve a ton of credit. I think Steve Asmussen's done a very, very good job with Long Range Toddy. And the folks that are being hard on Improbable, seems a little bit unfair to me, but you as a handicapper, you're the one, you need to make your own decisions. I know what my choices are, what my call is. This horse is going to benefit from this race. Still a little bit green, a little bit goofy with the mental piece. I think he's going to move forward. I think he's going to be the horse to beat if they both show up here in the Arkansas Derby in 4 weeks. But make no mistake about it, Long Range Toddy, he has at least stamped himself as a legitimate 3-year-old on this sort of Kentucky Derby trail. He gets the job done in the first division of the Rebel this year. Upsets Improbable, who went off at odds of 2-5. Long Range Toddy and Improbable. Both are 95 buyers and 117 time adjusted or pace adjusted Timeform US ratings. Second division of the Rebel, let's take a look at the field. All eyes on Game Winner, the 2-year-old champion returning. First start is a 3-year-old, called a little bit of an audible, as did Improbable as far as the Baffert barn is concerned. They were supposed to start last week. Didn't happen because of the issues out in Southern California. Instead, he shows up here. The question was, how would he return off the bench? And also, would anyone be able to challenge him? Ultimately, another Southern California import was the one that presented the big challenge. Let's take a look at the stretch run of the second division of the Rebel.
Top of the stretch, Omaha Beach is in front. He has a 2-length lead on Game Winner, who has to go right now. Omaha Beach past mid-stretch, now a length and a half. Game Winner trying to gun him down on the money, and Rosario says it's game time. Here's Game Time outside Omaha Beach. Game Winner, Omaha Beach, right together in Omaha Beach. I think
Omaha Beach gets the job done at 4-1 over Game Winner, defeated by a nose at odds of 1-2, and at 48-1, Market King rounds out your trifecta. Let's take a look at Omaha Beach. He's 2 of 6 lifetime, all 6 times in the money. Never been out of the money in 6 lifetime starts. Over $500,000 in career earnings. Owned by Fox Hill Farms Incorporated. Trained by Richard Mandela. Bred by Charming Syndicate in Kentucky. Ridden victory by Mike Smith. And the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He's by Warfront out of a Seeking the Gold mare named Charming. 96 buyers for each of the top 2 runners, Omaha Beach as well as Game Winner. Timeform US ratings a little bit different. They're both pace adjusted. Omaha Beach with the 119, Game Winner with a 118. They both finished very well. Visually impressive from both of them. We'll start with Omaha Beach. This was an effort. Coming into this race, I had said I was unsure if the wet track was really what moved him up when he broke his maiden, or perhaps the chance that one-turn configuration is something that he actually appreciated. Well, apparently it was neither of those. He's just actually a much better main track horse than a turf horse, and I don't even know if I should go that far, because when you go through and look at his PPs, he is that sort of fascinating horse that has never taken a step back from a numbers standpoint. I'll admit, and I still have been, disappointed with those first 4 losses of his career, but he continued to take those incremental steps forward from a speed figure standpoint, and he did so again here on Saturday. And it makes me wonder, he's in good hands with Richard Mandela. This is a situation where perhaps this is a horse that just continues to improve and continues to progress the time of year that he needs to continue to progress. Now he's up to a mid-90 buyer. Let's just say perhaps there's a scenario where he ends up getting into that low 100 range. His tactical ability, where I think he's better when he's out there dictating things, but he's shown in each of the past 2, early on anyway, he sat off of a target before just taking over. You know, this is all of a sudden an interesting horse. He galloped out well. I thought this was a very, very strong effort all around. Mandela, it's TBD where he's going to run next. Could be the Arkansas Derby, could be elsewhere. But nonetheless, wherever he shows up next, he's going to be viewed as a major player. As far as Game Winner is concerned, I'm sure people are looking at this saying a little bit disappointing that you couldn't go and get that horse in front of you. At the same time, you were over 8 lengths clear of the 3rd place finisher. Sure, maybe he sort of idled a little bit as they turned for home, but I love the fact that he went and tried to go and get Omaha Beach. Couldn't quite get there. Very similar to Improbable. I'm not going to hold this race against him off of an even longer layoff. And, you know, this wasn't the plan. He was supposed to go in a different race, a little bit of an audible, and he still got beat by a really nice horse, only by a nose. I don't have any issue with this effort. He, it sounds like, is going to go back to Santa Anita, and he will run in the Santa Anita Derby whenever that race is going to be run, because they've had to change the scheduled reopening at Santa Anita 15 times over the past 3 days. So whenever the Santa Anita Derby is going to be run, that's where Game Winner will be next. I thought he ran just fine. He finished slightly faster than Omaha Beach did. He comes home in 30.44, Omaha Beach 30.60, but if Omaha Beach is going to have the jump on a horse like Game Winner each and every time, boy, it's going to be a major tactical advantage. And we have seen recent years the running style that's most successful in the Kentucky Derby is up there either on the lead or sitting just off of it. pushing the pace, not coming from mid-pack. I'm going to be fascinated to see how things continue to progress going forward. Now, here is the sort of negative side about the second division. After that, I don't know if there was a hell of a lot of running going on. The fact that Market King was able to hang on for third makes me seriously question everything else that was behind them in this race. Our Brain Trust was nowhere. Gunmetal Gray did what he does. He lags at the back of the pack and comes on. I said it in the sort of preview edition of this show. I just said I think he's an honest horse. He's going to give you what he's got. I don't know how good it is. I think case in point, I believe he had earned 82 buyers prior to this race. He earns an 81 here and a 106 time form rating. Captain Von Trapp actually ran quite well. For a moment, it looked like he was going to challenge at the top of the lane before he flattened out. They threw him to the deep end here. Maybe this is a little bit too much too soon. And also, I do wonder, maybe he's better, slightly shorter at a flat mile. Laughing Fox, the horse that I thought was a little bit interesting, he was nowhere, didn't do a heck of a lot of running, very disappointing. Overall, I kind of feel like this field is disappointing with the exception of the top two, and I think they both acquitted themselves very nicely. I think they're both legitimate 3-year-old prospects going forward. I expect Omaha Beach to continue on. I expect Game Winner to continue on. Of the two, who do I think is more intriguing? Right now, probably Game Winner, just because this was his first start in so long, and I think he will take a step forward here in his next start. And he's had success at Churchill Downs, but that's not to sit here and say that Omaha Beach is not a horse to take seriously, because these numbers and the way that he has continued to improve, boy, he's going the right direction for very, very top-level connections. Omaha Beach prevails over Game Winner in the second division of the Rebel. Sounds like Omaha Beach could be potentially going back to Arkansas for his final prep leading into the Kentucky Derby, and Game Winner will be staying in Southern California for the Santa Anita Derby. They both earned 96 buyers. Omaha Beach a 119 time form rating. Game Winner a 118. So there you have it. Those are the two divisions of the Rebel. Now let's throw it into the very, very brief stakes montage. I'll go through, give you some quick hits afterward. You're going to get the Azeri and the inside information, as well as a couple of other little listed stakes races. So let's throw it there. We'll come back, get you some quick hits.
Midnight Bisou has 3 lengths to make up. Shamrock Rose rolls off the top of the turn and leads. Midnight Bisou trying to split horses. A late to the outside, Shamrock Rose. A final furlong to get. Midnight Bisou drives through at the rail, and here she comes. Midnight Bisou, a late into second. Midnight Bisou, yes! Midnight Bisou beat a late in the 30.
He has inside position and a narrow lead on the outside. America's Tail let go by Paco, and coming after the leader, Tecalita has to find more with 1/8 of a mile to go. America's Tail for the front. Razorback Lady fighting hard for every yard down the center. Tecalita with another run, 16th to go. It's America's Tail with the win in the inside information. Close then for
Across
second.
the track, Snapper Sinclair, Giant Expectations, and Rated R Superstar. These 3 for the final furlong, and it is still Rated R Superstar, Giant Expectations, and Snapper Sinclair. And look at the 3 of them come to the wider. Rated R Superstar, Giant Expectations battles on at the rails. Snapper Sinclair, Rated R Superstar, Snapper Sinclair, Rated R Superstar won the Essex.
The field is at the top of the stretch. Filibustin challenged here by Sower and Sounds Delicious. Yorkie Poo Princess is fourth as they come down for the 8th pole. Start with Silver out in the middle of the track. Sounds Delicious with a narrow lead. Here's Start with Silver on the outside. Yorkie Poo Princess in between horses. They come down for the finish, and it is Start with Silver, and off the pace winner of the correction.
Some quick hits here. Nothing spectacular as far as observations. The Essex, I thought Giant Expectations and Snapper Sinclair. Their biggest problems, in my opinion, still the configuration. I think they're one-turn horses. Get them back to a one-turn mile or 7/8, and I think they will be better suited in the long run. Azeri, great trip and a great ride on Midnight Bisou from Mike Smith. Down there saving ground, splits horses, back down to the inside. She was very good in here. Ears were up at the very end of the race. You know, do you want to say that perhaps the layoff is what got a late beat? Do you want to say the ground loss is what got her beat? I don't know. I watching that race, I just don't know. I think Midnight Bisou was just the better horse that day. Now going forward, I think there's still the chance that Elate can rebound. But as we spoke about it a little bit in the stakes preview that we did last week, Illman and I, there's still that part of me that wonders, and I want to see how does Elate come out of this race now, because we saw what Abel Tasman did exiting that big race last year up at Saratoga in the personal ensign. She would be there, but then just kind of offer nothing, and it makes you wonder, Did that race take a little bit of the starch out of? Certainly it did with Abel Tasman. We'll find out about Elate, but I thought it was a fine return for Elate, but I don't think the layoff and all those sort of things in the ground loss, I don't think that's why she lost this race. I think Midnight Bisou was simply a better horse on this day. Inside information, nothing really special to add. Tecalita had her chance. She tried to go and run down America's Tail. I'm a little unsure about the quality of the race overall, but really no major observations there. And as far as the correction at Aqueduct is concerned, at first glance, I don't love the race. You saw those two outside horses that made the big moves that ultimately got up there to run first and second. Neither of them changed leads at any point in the stretch run. It just makes me wonder overall, did they get a good setup, and how good is that race as a whole? So there you have it. Those are some quick hits in the stakes montage for this week. Let's roll right into the weekend's best as far as Beyer speed figure performances are concerned. Right in order, the 3-year-old males. We spoke about them in the second division, the Omaha Beach game winner version of the Rebel. They each earned 96 Beyers down at Oaklawn. 3-year-old fillies on Dirt Royal Charlotte, an 80 and a maiden special down at Gulfstream. 3-year-old males on turf, Honey Won't, a 75 and a maiden claiming race down at Gulfstream. 3-year-old fillies on turf, Dance Till Dawn, a 76 and an optional claimer at Gulfstream Park. Older males on dirt, Lewisfield, a big race from him, and a stakes race at Laurel Park with a 101 Beyer. Older fillies and mares, you have Midnight Bisou there, the 99 in the Azaria at Oaklawn. Older males on grass, Faction Cat, a 92 and a non-winners of 2 other than down at Tampa. And older fillies and mares on turf, Munchkin Money, an 87 in an N2X down at Gulfstream. There you have it, the weekend's best as far as Beyer speed figure performances are concerned on the Matt Bernier Show. Let's take a quick look at DRFTV. What is on tap this week? DRF Bets races of the day galore. Stakes previews. You're going to have the Sunland Derby. You're going to have the Louisiana Derby. You'll have the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show. You'll have Out of the Gate, DRF Horse Watch, a number of different things. You know the drill here. Video.drf.com as well as the Racing Forms YouTube channel. Those are places that you can find this podcast. You can also find it, well, I'll just run them all for you. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. You're over on YouTube. Click subscribe. Make sure the bell icon's lit up. Give us a positive review, thumbs ups, all those sorts of good things. If you're over on Apple Podcasts or you're on Spotify or however you get your podcasts, subscribe, write us reviews, leave us positive ratings. It's always appreciated. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or over on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. There you have it. This is the recap edition in the books. Best of luck however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play for the rest of the week. I will be back on Thursday evening with the preview edition. And I got a funny feeling we'll be looking at some more 3-year-old stakes races, prep races leading into the Kentucky Derby. But who knows? We'll find out. Good luck until then. This has been the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.